I'm with the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center. And we, in collaboration with the Charlottesville Area Chamber of Commerce, which is Elizabeth, we are working together to bring these programs to you. We call this our Pro Tip Tuesday, and we try at the last Tuesday of the month to come up with topics that we think are relevant now for businesses and bring in experts on different topics that can chat with you and answer some questions. And we're so thrilled to have Adam Calli. Linda Tupperty, our events coordinator, found him. And he is the founder and principal consultant for ARC Human Capital. He's coming to us from Northern Virginia today. And as you've heard, he's, highly publicized, in high demand on TV and radio, and he's been speaking at the SHRM conferences. He's been quoted in HR Magazine. He's got over 20 years in human resource skills and experience of best practices and what to do, and has been incredibly popular during the COVID crisis because he's sharing some creative ideas and solutions and just helping people talk through concerns. He is also an HR instructor with George Mason University's Executive and Professional Education Program. And he's one of only 41 instructors nationwide for the Society for Human Resource Management, which is what we refer to as SHRM. So with that, I'm gonna let Adam take it away. And Adam, do you prefer that people put their questions in chat, that they wait until the end? How would you like to roll?
We are going to cover a lot of ground really fast. So you are welcome to put them in chat. And then at the end, I will basically hang around and answer as many questions as I possibly can. Either those that you put into chat as I was proceeding or anything that just comes up at the end. I want to really deliver everything I possibly can to you at every moment that we've got available. So put them in the chat, and that'll sort of save them up for us.
And I will share slides after it's over too. So
yes, the slides have already been delivered to the good folks at the Chamber and the SBDC, and they will be made available for anybody who wants them, and I guess sent out afterwards. So Rebecca, Linda, tell me, can you see my slides? Are you seeing the full screen version?
Yes.
I love it when things work the way they're supposed to. Okay, beautiful. So let's get going, shall we? So first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you. You've all been promoted. You probably didn't realize you just got a promotion, but you did. And you are now promoted to risk management. Now, some of you are saying, wait a minute, I didn't want that job. Too bad, you got it anyway. Everybody who is in the wonderful world of business these days, in some way, shape, or form, is in risk management. So go ahead and add that to your business cards. Now, if you're already a business professional, we can just forget the COVID-19 coronavirus. If we were talking a year or two ago, I still would have said, in some ways, part of your job is risk management because you're in business, and there are risks that we face from our competitors. There are risks that we face from environmental factors, from government legal factors. Risks come at us from all different ways and shapes, right? Our suppliers, our shipping sources, delivery sources. This is just a new risk that we have to manage. And as you consider reopening your workplace, bringing everyone back to work in some way, shape, or form, there are a lot of perils. There's a lot of risks that we need to manage. And my hope for the time that we have together is that we're going to be able to sort of plant some seeds for you to be a catalyst, be an inspiration of some ways that you can create some of the plans to manage the risks of returning to work. But before we talk about how you return to work, I want to talk about if you should return to work. And what you'll see on the screen here is that during the entire Vietnam conflict, the total US military fatalities was a little over 58,000 deaths. According to the CDC website, as of 2 days ago, in this nation, we are now at nearly 146,000. Do the math. We're closing in on 3 times as many people as military folks who passed away during the Vietnam conflict. Now, that is real numbers, people. This is not fake media. I'm just an HR guy. I have no political agenda here. But my desire for you is to think carefully, recognize the risks you face, and do not accept any risk unless you've thought about it and thought about a way to mitigate it. And one of the ways you might mitigate that risk is to not take it on at all, which might mean delay reopening, or at least delay reopening in full. But if you are going to reopen in any way, shape, or form, my desire is for you to be educated. I will tell you, as I mentioned when we were doing our casual chat before the session began, I've done this session a few times. The first time I did it was May 13th, a little over 2 months ago. And at that time, the count was 80,820. So we have added 65,000 plus deaths in this country since the first time I did this presentation back in May. I want you to imagine all the students at Virginia Tech being deceased twice in 2.5 months. That is a rough approximation of how many folks we have lost from May to now. Not in total, from May to now. Pretty scary. It's meant to be scary because I want you to proceed with caution. That's what I'm here to get you to do today. Now, it's your decision whether or not you will open, regardless of what the governor tells us, the president tells us, your county tells us. It is your decision on if you will open, and if you will open, how you will open. It is your ability as the business owner, as the business leader, to say, I want you to report to work on Monday. You have that right. Just fine, right? You run your business. If you want your people to come to work, you can make that decision. Just recognize that as you make that decision, what you need to think of beforehand. Because if something goes bad, if your only defense is, well, the governor said it was okay, the president said it was okay, my county said it was okay, yeah, I don't think that's a very good risk management effort. I don't think that's a good defense. So I'm going to take you back in time with me, and we're going to play a little game here. We're going to 1982. I was a kid back then. Yes, I know I'm dating myself, right? I look so young, but if you were closer to me, you'd see all the gray hair. 1982, I used to play this game on Atari. I know some of you might remember what the Atari is called, and it was called Pitfall. And in the game Pitfall, there was this fellow, his name was Pitfall Harry. Now, I know you're looking at these graphics right now, and you're thinking, wow, that's really impressive. Okay, I know that's not what you're actually thinking, but it was 1982, so come on, give me a break, right? What I had to do back in 1982 with my pal Pitfall Harry was I had to navigate him through a jungle, and the goal was to collect a treasure. So here was his risk. He had to get past crocodiles, he had to jump over logs, he had to dodge and jump past scorpions. And what were his risks? Well, that's what they faced. But what did he get out of it? Gold, silver, and money. Right? That's, of course, isn't that a great motivator nowadays, right? We all want gold, silver, and money. Okay, so now how does this relate to us? Well, this is you, the professional. And your pitfalls are a little different. Your risks are not crocodiles, they're corona. You're not worried about logs, you're worried about laws. You're not worried about scorpions, you're worried about sanitizer. And let's talk about the rewards that you get. Well, while you may not get gold, you're going to achieve your goals. Goals could be market share increase. Goals could just be survival at this point, right? Goals should be increasing your customer service satisfaction score. You're not worried about silver as a reward, you're worried about survival. And you're not worried about money as a reward, you're worried about, well, actually, you are worried about money, right? This is business, after all. Come on. This is America. We're built on capitalism. And you know what? Profit is not a dirty word. There's nothing wrong with being in business to make money. Obviously, if we make money, we're able to do a lot of things for ourselves, if you're the business owner, business founder like me, but also for our staff and for our communities, right? So there are rewards out there, but we've got to know how we face those risks and how we get past these pitfalls. So right now, the way I would describe this is you are at the center, the intersection, if you will, of many major issues. You've got to decide how to balance them. First thing you need to think about is your workforce. What kind of workforce do you have? Is it more white collar or blue collar? How big is your workforce? I'm going to tell you, if you're trying to manage 4 people, it's very different than managing 40 people, right? We get that. You also look at the age of your workforce, right? Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm an HR person, but I can tell you from all the things I read and see, yes, older folks have a greater risk of exposure and the consequences of exposure to the disease. You got to think about what's the average age of my workforce. And oh, by the way, how many of the people in my workforce have young families, right? Do they have kids who are at home who are not going to school right now, not in summer camp right now? That's different than if you have a workforce that skews older, where you have very few people in that age bracket. What about the sandwich generation? That may be a term some of you know. That is somebody like me. I still have kids at home who I'm taking care of, but I'm also starting to worry about my mom. You know, she's over 70, right? She got the arthritis I hear about every time I talk to her, right? I'm worried about taking care of both ends of the spectrum. Is that your workforce? If so, they may be very hesitant about returning to work, where they could potentially contract a disease and then expose elderly parents to it. These are not things you normally think about on a day-to-day basis, but they should weigh heavy on your mind now. But what else are you at the intersection now? Of culture. What is the culture like of your company? Not just the culture you have, but also even the culture you want. As you navigate through the coronavirus pandemic, how you respond, the things you do, the things you don't do, are all going to impact your culture. They can either reinforce it or they can undermine it. How you communicate is reflected in your culture. Are you going to work with your staff to come up with solutions? Or are you just going to tell them, this is the way it is, I'm the boss, I'm the owner, this is the decision I've made? I will tell you, I have one of my clients, his number 2 contacted us to give him good HR advice on how to reopen the office. We had a lengthy conversation about it. He took that to the business owner. The business owner said, forget all that. We're just reopening the office. I want everybody back on Monday. I've got a story to tell you about that later. Wait and see. Now, as I joked before, this is America. Capitalism and profit are good things, and this brings us to the topic of economics. If you have been closed, if your people have been teleworking in full or in part, what is the economic impact of your business on that? Now, a lot of this is the first thing you think about, and that's fine if that's what you think of first. I just don't want that to be what you think of only, right? If you bring your people back to work in some way, shape, or form, what will be the economic benefit of doing so? Think through that. Clearly, the bigger the economic benefit, the more motivated you are to do something. I get that. I would understand that even if there was no such thing as the coronavirus. But you need to think about the impact on the economics and the risk and how they interface. And last but not least, I got to talk about the law and the risk associated with it, because this is clearly a major issue. Now, there are some laws that have been around for many, many years, and they predate Corona. We're all familiar with OSHA, right? The Occupational Safety and Health Act. And in that act, there's something called the General Duty Clause. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a clause that says you, as an employer, have a general duty to provide a safe workplace to your team members. I'm obviously paraphrasing this, okay? Now, the question of the day is, are you able to provide a safe workplace that you have made conscious, intentional efforts to look out for the safety of your workforce through the coronavirus? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, that's a legal risk, potential problem. The Americans with Disabilities Act is actually celebrating its 30-year anniversary right now. Why am I telling you that? Because it's been around for 30 years. It long predates Corona. And what that is an issue for us right now is because there may be certain people who, as a result of some sort of medical condition, have a disability, and the ability to come back to work, to be exposed to a disease, to wear a mask, may be limited by their disease. Of course, I'm using the word disease, their disability, pardon me, in a very broad way right now, right? Everything's going to be individual. Everything's going to be specific. You look at one person and your conclusion will be different from another based on their own personal medical conditions. But these are all some of the different laws that are out there. Of course, we saw the Families First Coronavirus Response Act came out back in April. That law, of course, was passed by Congress in response to what we're dealing with. It expires December 31st of this year. At least that's the plan as of right now. And it put out new requirements on us. Things like paid sick time, expanded family medical leave for people who have to stay home and take care of their kids, right? Because kids are out of school and out of camp and the like. Got a lot of laws we got to worry about. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just an HR guy. I know things about the law because I teach it. I know things about the law because I advise it. I am not a lawyer, though. So as you contemplate all these things and the things that are yet to come and the slides that we haven't covered yet, it may be the time to get your employment lawyer on the phone and sort of map out your game plan. Now, as you are prepared to deal with the intersection of all these things, it's like a major highway traffic jam, and I'm going to ask you, if you're not ready, rethink the timing of your opening. Now, our friends at the CDC have provided a number of different flowcharts. This is the general business one, okay? There are some that are specific to different industries. So I would encourage you to pay a visit to the CDC website, and you will find these reopening flowcharts. And I'm not going to read this to you. I know it's small, might be a little hard for you to read on your screen. I didn't intend for you to read on the screen. I just want you to know these are available to you, and please make good use of them, because it's going to help you, again, manage your risk and think through it in a smart way. And you'll see it says step by step. Have you got this covered? Yes, move on. Have you got this covered? No, don't move on till you got it covered. And it takes you all the way to the end. And some of the things at the end include things like, what do you do if somebody tests positive in your workplace? You better have a plan for that now before you reopen, because it could happen. And if it happens, what are you going to do? You better be thinking ahead. So what I'm giving you, a bit of advice here, is as our states and as our nation has chosen to take a phased approach to reopening, we also can use a phased approach to our planning for reopening. So I'm outlining some phases for you that I think might be helpful. And the first phase, and I'm going to break all these out in the following slides. Phase one is pre-return. I want you to think about your vendors, your space, and your supplies before you reopen. Excuse me. Phase two, still pre-return. I want you to survey your staff. I want you to talk to your staff. I want you to talk with your managers. Managers are staff, but managers play a very different role. We're going to talk about that. Finally, phase three, come on in. Yay, we're open for business. What does it look like then? And then once you're reopened, are you pivoting in any way? I've got some great examples to share with you. And again, risk management, I can't beat this drum enough, my friends. Risk management, I want you to say, all right, what am I going to do in case of? And again, this ties back to what I just showed you from the CDC. So let's look at phase one, pre-return with your vendors. If you are ready to open, it means you've got a plan for office cleaning. Office cleaning may not be something you gave a lot of thought to before, right? Somebody came in every night, emptied the garbage. Somebody came in once a week and cleaned the refrigerator and the microwave. Yeah, that don't cut it anymore. You need, if the vendor is yours directly, you need to be having some new conversations with your office cleaners about enhanced cleaning methods, because you're going to share that with your staff to make them feel comfortable and relaxed. You also need to talk to your building management. Assuming you don't own your building, it's not your own building. If it is, obviously cut that out. But if you're renting space, what is the game plan for opening the building, right? You might want to talk about air circulation and cleaning of public areas. Oftentimes, the office cleaners may be provided to you directly through the building management. It's not your own contract, in which case you want to talk to them about, what do we do? What are you doing? How are you cleaning my space as well as the public space? You can also see yourself looking at the physical changes that you're going to make in your own workspace. And I was talking with some folks in the pre-session here. We were chatting. I said, I know somebody who is in business development for a handyman firm. And usually they do a lot of work in people's homes. You know, now they're doing a lot of work in the corporate world because companies are calling them and asking them to put up these plexiglass barriers to separate cubes and to separate reception areas from visitors. It's just like when you go to the grocery store or other stores, you see barriers now between the checkout person and the customers. So what physical barriers have you put up? How are you changing the physical layout of your office space? If you're just saying, we don't need that, we do it the same way we always did. That doesn't sound like good risk management to me, but good luck with that. You go to all these stores these days, Walmart, the grocery store, whatever, and you see they are mapping out traffic flow. Go down this way, don't go this way, so that they can manage the number of people who are within that 6-foot radius of one another. Don't tell me you can't put some signs up that you can print on your printer and put down some masking tape on the floor with some arrows. Everything that you do helps your staff, your vendors, and your customers feel more comfortable when they come to your workplace, and everything you do helps you manage risk. And heaven forbid somebody decides to sue you. These are all efforts that you will be able to point to and say, this is how we tried to make this a safe workplace. And as we continue talking about that, of course, we need to think about PPE, personal protective equipment. Do you have gloves? Do you have masks? Do you have face shields? Do you have sanitizer, right? Are you giving every individual person their own spray bottle of cleaner, right? Welcome back to the office. Here's a roll of paper towels and here's some cleaner. Keep your space clean. Everything you can do is to the benefit of everybody else in the company. Because remember, if you have a workplace where people start to get sick, you're going to have a problem. How do you continue to deliver your products and services if you've got a sick workforce? And even if they're not sick, even if they're home quarantining out of an abundance of caution, that magic phrase, I've heard it more lately than I've heard ever, abundance of caution. How are you going to make sure you keep people from getting sick? Everybody gets their own spray bottle and their own hand sanitizer and their own paper towels. That's their return to work gift. Welcome back, right? We can also look at public areas that we used to have open. And when I say public areas, I'm talking about things like the kitchen and the break room, right? Sorry, no more. I don't want you congregating. I do not want you putting your sandwich next to my sandwich in the refrigerator. You just bring in a cooler and you keep it at your desk. That's where your sandwich is going to reside until, 2021. I mean, these are simple things that you can do. They're simple ways to explain to your staff, we're looking out for your health. And if you don't at least do those, then you're not making much effort. And I encourage you to do all you can to keep yourself safe and your workplace operating. Now let's continue on our phases. Phase 2, still in the return phase. Think about how you can collaborate with your workforce instead of dictate. Find out from them what their concerns are through some sort of survey. There's lots of survey tools out there, many of which are free. It's a way for you to aggregate the data quickly and easily and even anonymously, depending on the size of your organization and the way you work, right? You can ask people to check the boxes that apply. What are your concerns? Oh, I have young children. I have a pregnant wife. I have a boyfriend who lives with me who's got a compromised immune system. I've got elderly parents who I take care of. What are their concerns? How can you work with them, right? Anything that you send out, if you put it in writing, that's good, because then you know everybody's getting the same message the same way. And if something happens, we can point back to that message. But remember, what you put in writing lives on forever. So be careful to have your written communications reviewed. There's nothing wrong with speaking from your heart. There's nothing wrong with speaking from the point of view of a business person who wants to get their business back up and running. But make sure you take a balanced. You also need to be thinking about training. What is your new processes that you're putting in place on how you're going to navigate the workplace with the arrows, right? On the cleaning standards. Not just the cleaning standards that you expect people to prescribe to individually. Hey, I've given you your bottle. I've given you your paper towels. Clean your workplace, right? When you have a guest come to your office and they meet with you for 15 minutes and they leave, spray it down and clean it up, right? This is the new standard. I don't care if you're an executive vice president. I'm giving you a spray bottle and a paper towels and I expect you to use it. You work here. We're all in this together. That's training. But I'm going to tell you another part of training, and I mentioned this earlier. You need to train your managers. I don't care what their titles are. I don't care how junior or senior they are. Employees look to their managers for guidance? Are your managers prepared to provide that guidance? Do they know what the corporate expectations are? And I say corporate like it sounds like we're talking about, you know, Google or General Electric or Bank of America. I don't care, you got 20 people in your company. What is the corporate standard? What is the company's decision? You got 3 managers, 2 managers. Do those managers understand what the company's decisions are, what the expectations are, and are they prepared to deliver the same direction that you as a senior leader or an owner are delivering? We all have to be singing from the same sheet of music here, right? We got to be on the same page. Those people need to be equipped to succeed. If they are not equipped to succeed, expect them to fail, and their failure is your fault. I know I'm giving you a lot to think about. That's the intent of this session. Give you a lot to think about. Some other things in the training realm. Who's going to do the daily checks when they come to the office, if that's the way you want to go, right? Everybody comes, they got to answer the questionnaire. You know, have you lost your sense of taste? Have you lost your sense of smell? Have you had a fever? Have you been in contact with anybody? We're going to ask these questions, everybody, every day. Why? Because we're trying to limit the exposure of our workforce. We're trying to keep everybody safe. And this is not just for our workers. It can be for vendors. It can be for visitors who are coming into the workplace. I'm not just talking about like the UPS person who's dropping off a package and leaving. Obviously, I'm talking about more than that. But these are ways that we train our people so that they follow our dictates and we're all on the same page. We can also look at our standard operating procedures, our policies. In the old days, everybody worked 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, right? Whatever it is you did at your organization. What's the new plan? Do we have staggered shifts in a day? Do we have staggered days of the week? Are we going to tell our people, okay, you don't have to come back to work fully, but we expect this team to work together every Monday. It's just that team, and it's just that day. And we're going to tell them that's the day that you collaborate in person, because we believe that team works together effectively in person, and we need them to work together effectively in person. But we're still managing the risk by not bringing them in too often, and they're not exposing themselves to other colleagues, nor other colleagues exposing themselves to them. What are the new policies? Work schedules, days of the week, times of the day. These are all things that we can still do. You can have a blend of telework or remote work, however you like to put it, and in-person work. It also could be very helpful to you when you've done your training with your managers and you've done your training with your staff. Give them a written form, have them sign off that they have acknowledged the new policies and the new procedures. Why? Because heaven forbid something goes wrong. If they decide to sue your butt, that's part of your defense. Now, I always get a question during these sessions that say, Adam, can people sue us if they get sick at work? And I would say, hey, this is America. Anybody can sue you for anything. The question is not, can they sue you? The question is, can they win? Or what's the likelihood that they will win? If you're taking the steps that we're talking about and the steps we have yet to talk about, then the likelihood that they will sue you hopefully goes down because there's no reason to. And the likelihood that they will sue you hopefully goes down because they're going to say, wow, the company did all this stuff. I'm not going to have much of a chance of winning. And if they do sue you, maybe you can get them to settle out of court for a small amount of money. Now, nobody wants to give away money. I understand that. I'm a business person. I don't want to give away $10,000 in a lawsuit, but I'd rather get hit with a lawsuit and settle for 10 grand than lose 100 grand, because 10 grand might make you mad, might hit your budget and keep you in business. 100 grand could be the thing that forces you into bankruptcy. Again, I'm not the business advisor, I'm the HR advisor. And my advice right now is do these things as ways to manage the risk, acknowledge the risk, and lessen the likelihood of an impact. Of course, we also need to recognize that there are gonna need to be individual accommodations. This is not one size fits all, people. There's not one policy that applies to everybody. HR usually advises that. I know this, I'm an HR person, been doing it for 20 plus years, but this is a time for individuality, for creativity, for adaptability, and for flexibility. I've been on the radio saying that, I've been doing this on webinars, and that's my mantra. Creativity, flexibility, adaptability, individuality. Figure out ways to make it work. And that's what's gonna be important right now. Now, hopefully, at some point, we get to phase 3. Come on in, we're open for business. Again, this was referenced back in that CDC flowchart that I showed you earlier. Even though you're open for business, what are you doing to ensure the continued safety of your workforce, your customers, and your vendors? And I mentioned a minute ago, are we testing people, right? Forehead temperature checks or the questionnaires, right? That's a way to ensure continued safety. Are we making sure that the enhanced cleaning protocols in place remain in place? Are we making sure that our people are continuing to be supplied with gloves, with masks, with cleaners, with hand sanitizers? That's ongoing compliance. We need to remember that the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, is in place through the end of this calendar year. And that includes things like paid time off, 2 weeks for certain illnesses or caring for people, up to 12 total weeks or 10 additional weeks, however you'd like to say that, for people who need to be off to take care of their kids. Now, they may have used some of that time prior to the end of the last school year. They may be using some of that time now because, of course, summer camps are closed, right? My daughters couldn't go to Girl Scout camp. Why? Because they all got canceled. There's an example. Fortunately, they're old enough I don't have to worry about it. But a lot of people might have young kids. They're using up that time. But even if they haven't used it or haven't used it all, you still remember that could be an issue for them if you return them to the office. Because I don't know about your school districts where you guys are located, but the school district that my kids are in has decided that at least for the first quarter, education is going to be virtual. So if I had young kids, I need to be home. And if you're a business owner, you say, your kids are not my problem. You know what? In the old days, I might agree with you. But this is not the old days. This is coronavirus days. So go ahead, tell all your workers their problems ain't your problems. See how many workers you're going to still have when this mess is over. Okay, let me get back off my soapbox. Let's keep going. Again, you have processes and procedures you've changed. You've trained your people in the pre-step. Last step we just discussed. Those need to maintain, and maybe they need to change, right? Be prepared to adapt. I said adaptability is critical. You put something in place. Is it working? Revisit it. I also want you to prepare for the next wave. Again, I started doing these sessions back in May. It's now late July. I'm not a doctor, just an HR pro. This might be the next wave. Arizona, Texas, California, Florida. What are we hearing from those states? Their reopening has led to a resurgence. Their ICUs are full. Now, I'm just reading the same public news that you guys are reading. And I'm hearing the stuff on the radio and the TV that you're hearing. I don't have any special insight into what's going on in Arizona. But I do know that if here in your area and Virginia overall, if you see a resurgence, people can't come to work, or people get sick, and people have exposed their colleagues, then what? I mentioned before the session that I have a customer who called me Sunday night. When customers call me Sunday night, it's never for good reasons. And they called to say that one of their staff had tested positive for the coronavirus. And the question to me was, what do we do? And I was like, well, I guess the first thing I do is stop watching TV and hanging out with my girlfriend and my dog, because now that's what I was doing on Sunday night. Of course, I was just trying to lighten the tense mood. And I said, all right, let's talk through this. And we spent the next, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes on the phone. Do this, do this, do this. Make sure you already have mapped out the do this, do this, do this. Because depending on the size of your company, the demographics of the company, the things we discussed before, you may have a greater or lesser likelihood of encountering this at your workplace. You also need to look at some of your regular policies, and I'll give you an example. Many companies give their employees some sort of PTO, vacation time, sick time, whatever it is you call it, paid time off. And many companies, as part of their paid time off policies, have some sort of limit on carryover. Well, if people can't take time off right now, are they going to lose some of their vacation time? And do you need to adjust the carryover? Now, that's just one simple example. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. What I am saying is you should think about it. And that's just an example. There may be other standard policies that you have that you may need to revisit because they could be a problem in the age of COVID-19. All right, section 3A, be prepared to pivot. What do you need to do to survive? What new marketing methods are you using? I heard from Rebecca how some of her colleagues at the SBDC are advising tons and tons of people now on how to do business online, how to market online. Maybe people just came to your store before, or they knew your business by reputation, and that was great. Still great, right? But is that the only marketing method? I used to go to lots of networking events. Now I don't go anywhere. I sit here on Zoom all the time, like I'm doing with you folks. What new marketing methods do you need to do, train your people on? Are you going to deliver some new products, some new services, right? We've heard a lot about restaurants who are really going full hog into takeout, right? Maybe you used to have a bakery. People used to come and buy your muffins. Are you prepared to do delivery now? We never did delivery before, Adam. Welcome to the new world, my friends. You better start doing delivery or nobody's eating your muffins. If nobody's eating your muffins and you're a bakery, you're going out of business. So what are your new products? What are your new services, new locations? Are you going after new customers that you never went after before? Because your old customers are not enough to keep you afloat. Are you changing your pricing? You know, I'm going to tell you about the Great Recession. You remember that? It was like 10 years ago, right? It feels like so long ago. It was before COVID, right? During the Great Recession, maybe you needed to go to bare bones pricing because any revenue was better than no revenue. You weren't making profit, but you were keeping yourself afloat. You know what? It's time to use that line of credit. And the more money you have coming in, the less you're going to use that line of credit. Maybe you survive. I used to say, remember March? You remember March? It seems like a lifetime ago. But back in March and April, I was doing webinars and I was telling everybody, plan to survive until July and August. And I seemed to be this brilliant guy back then. I was not saying, oh, it'll go away in 6 weeks. It'll go away in April. It'll go away in May. No. I was telling people on my webinars, think July and August. And you know what? Forget that. Now I'm telling people, think 2021. I'm just an HR person. I'm just a business owner. I don't have any special insights. I'm not in the White House. I'm not in Congress. But in my opinion, from what I'm hearing from clients, from friends, is you need to be thinking, what are the drastic measures that I put in place to get me to 2021? Do what you will with your advice, with that advice, my friend. Okay, most of you have probably heard of this little tiny company called Walt Disney World, right? Maybe you've heard of this lady, her name's Snow White, okay? Walt Disney World been around a long time. We all know Disney. Obviously, I'm trying to be a little funny here, okay? During World War II, Disney did the ultimate pivot. They went from making classic animations like Snow White to doing a totally different type of work, but using the skills, the equipment, and the facilities they had. They started during World War II creating training and propaganda videos for not only the US government, but believe it or not, also for the Canadian government, right? Buy war bonds, right? Go enlist, right? I got news for you. If Donald Duck told me to go enlist, I was ready to sign up. I would have been fired up like Donald, you know? He's always, I would have been right there, right? They also even had their art department designing logos for units, military units and ships. Anything that they could do to use the talent, the skills, the equipment, the facility, the space, they did, because nobody was going to the movies and watching Snow White anymore, right? So the question of the day is, what do you do to pivot to ensure your survival? What will you do that's different? And maybe it's something you decide, hey, this is great, we're going to continue to do it. Or maybe you only do it during Corona. I leave that to you. But this is a time for creativity, adaptability, and flexibility. I said it before, I'm saying it again. All right, phase 3B, we're almost at the end of our phases here. Risk management, this is the just in case, right? Like I said, what if a staff member gets sick? In my opinion, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? The call that I got on Sunday, fortunately for me and my clients, that was the first call that I've gotten from a client who had a staff member who tested positive. To me, it was just a matter of time. Hopefully that's not the case for you, but be prepared. And as I've said, what if there is a second wave? Well, I kind of think this might be it. How bad is it going to be? I don't know. You can read the statistics, you can listen to the experts, and you can decide in your geographic area, because I'm up in Northern Virginia, it's a little different. But think about it and be prepared. All right, now I know this is tiny. It's not meant for you to read, but if you are hiring right now, and I have clients, and I know other companies who have hired people during the coronavirus. In fact, my new friend Rebecca here told me she started her new job during the coronavirus, okay? Now, I have no idea what her organization did to onboard Rebecca, but I'm gonna imagine that probably not like they would have usually done, and that may be the same case for you. If you've hired any employees during the coronavirus, while you were all teleworking, right, nobody was coming to the workplace, one of the things that you may not have done was the good old I-9 form. Now, you should have done the form. You might remember that's the form where somebody proves that they have the right to work in the United States of America. And they are supposed to provide to you in person, right? They must show you in person, here's my driver's license, right? Here's my social security card. Here's my birth certificate, right? Okay, great. Well, you can't do that in person if you're all teleworking. And the government recognized that. So way back in March, they said, okay, listen, while you're teleworking, people will be allowed to send you a photocopy or scan and email it or take a picture of it and text it to you. That is usually a total no-no. So if you've got an employee that you hire out in Tennessee or Texas or something, no can do. But right now, during the coronavirus, it is allowed. But what they're saying is that once you resume normal operations, once your people return to the workplace, they have to show you their documents in person. Now, this is not a class on how to complete the I-9 form. Most of you would go to sleep if I tried to deliver that class. I know that. You're not HR folks. But this is a law. This is a rule. Dates back to 1986. You got to look at their ID in person. Right now, you get a temporary allowance to not do that. But if you reopen your workplace and you've hired anybody during the period that you were teleworking, they need to bring in their ID within the first 3 days of being back at work, and you've got to review it and do the I-9 form the proper way. Again, just trying to help you manage risk and keep you out of trouble. Now we are starting to come to the end of our time here. Again, you don't have to read all of these, but I've provided you links. As I said earlier in the session, I have been fortunate. I've been on the television, I've been on the radio, I've been on satellite radio, I've been in print media, all over the place. If you look at my website, you'll see there's like 18 or 19 different things where we've provided a lot of advice to the public on different aspects related to the coronavirus. You'll see cutting staff in times of crisis, how to manage terminations and layoffs, what to do if somebody contracts the COVID-19 virus. There is more information out there. I'm talking about from me. Of course, there are other people who have been interviewed. Check it out. Listen to it over lunch one day. And this will be additional resources available to you beyond the scope of our time together. So at this point, I'm going to deactivate the slides here. I want to switch over to the Zoom here, and we'll go into the chat box. I am happy to field any questions from anybody about anything.
Well, I wanted to take an opportunity. I'm Elizabeth Cromwell from the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to take an opportunity to thank you for a very thorough presentation, and we do have time for some questions. I'd be happy to just sort of kick it off with a comment and a question myself. The comment is that you did touch on childcare and schools being closed as an issue, and in all the work that we've done most recently through Project Rebound, but also just in communicating with our members, that is probably the most common concern that we have about bringing people back to work. And there are many, many businesses that have told me their staff have said, if we have to come back to work right now, we're not going to. And, you know, fire me if you need to. But I think that is a huge looming concern. So I'm glad you touched on it. You probably don't have a solution to that problem. But my question.
Don't have children. That's the solution. No,
Yeah,
just kidding.
too late.
It's
but-
a little late when you already have them. Yes.
But my question.
I do not have an actual solution, but I will throw out some ideas if you want to hear them. Because
Sure.
as you said, this is nothing new, right? This is not the only people who have kids. Obviously, if you can stagger the work schedule, that might be helpful, right? So if there's two parents at home, and you know, and I'm just making this up in traditional ways, you know, if mom can be home during the day and dad can work at night, then there you go, right? Now we've got the kids covered, right? So that might be helpful. I will tell you, I have 3 kids. My youngest are 14, so I'm beyond the stage of worrying about little childcare. But when they were babies, my former wife, I mean, she was a white-collar professional, and sometimes the kids would get sick, and we would look at each other and be like, well, I have to be at work today, and I have to be at work today. And so what she would do is if one of the kids was sick, she would get up early in the morning and go to work as early as possible, and she'd work till like noon. Because at least being in the office half the day is better than not being there at all. She would come home, and the minute she got home, I was already dressed, shoes on, ready to go. We used to call it the baby handoff, right? She would take the kid, and I would hop in the car and race to work. I'd work till like 7 o'clock at night. Because this way, somebody was home with the child, and each of us got to be at work part of the day. And part of the day is better than none of the day, in my opinion. So like I said, this is a time for flexibility and adaptability, but it's a two-way street. If you've got an employee who says, I'm a white-collar professional, I don't work nights. Yeah, you do now. And by the way, you may need to work on a Saturday or a Sunday because you want to get paid and I want to pay you because I need you to do the work and you need to earn the money to pay for your family. This is a two-way street. So if you can work Saturday and Sunday and be off Monday, Tuesday, well, now at least we got 2 days covered. So this is a time for adaptability, creativity, flexibility, and communication. And it's a two-way street. I'm willing to give, you got to be willing to give too. And if you're not willing to give, then maybe you do need to stay home and not work here anymore. That's my tough business manager type coming out there. That's not my sweet HR side, but I got to have 2 sides. What else do you have to say, my friend?
Anybody else have any questions?
So Lydia has her hand raised. Can you unmute yourself, Lydia?
Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you for a great presentation. Yeah. So I was just curious on a couple of things. It's really the theme of the employees' rights. And in that little tough conversation, which sounds really appropriate, you know, to have, what rights do they have to say no? And then there's also the issue of unemployment insurance being a temptation to employees. So yeah, the first question is, what rights do employees have to say no, and you know, to be able to preserve their job as well? Do you happen to know any of those things?
Sure. Of course, the employers do have rights, and that's why I touched on some of the laws like OSHA, right? They have the right to a safe workplace. You have the obligation to provide a workplace that is free from recognized hazards as much as possible. And that, as I said, is something that's always been around, right? And a lot of times we think about workplace safety, we think about working with sharp equipment, right? Blades. We think about chemicals. We think about hot equipment. And it could be as simple as working in a kitchen to working in a steel mill, right? You've always had that obligation, and therefore they have that right. And if they don't feel that you are trying to live up to that, then there's the potential for a lawsuit, which is why I made mention of that. So they have certain rights. You, however, have certain rights. You are the employer. You have the right to say, I want you back in the workplace. And they have the right to say no. And if they choose not to comply with your directive, well, then they can be fired. But before you just willy-nilly throw around, come back on Monday, you better have a very good business reason, a neutral, objective rationale for why it's necessary. And again, going back to their points about rights, if they're covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act and they have some sort of disability, well, then they have the right to engage with you in a dialogue about, is there a way to accommodate their disability that enables them to still do their job? And even before Corona, I would have told you, yes, one of the ways that a business can accommodate an individual's disability is telework. Now, obviously, that doesn't always work. If you're a cashier at Walmart, you can't telework. I get it. You get it. That's just, it's not going to happen, right? If you fix AC units for a living and you have to go to somebody's house to fix their AC, as we sit here in sweltering 97-degree temp with 97% humidity, you got to go do the job. And if you won't go do the job, then you won't have a job. So there's a real tug of war. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a total balancing act between how they can exercise their rights and how they can still earn a living, right? They're free to sit at home. And that's a perfect segue into your point about unemployment. Now, if I remember right, at the end of this week, the current federal $600 enhancement to unemployment is due to expire. Now, whether it will or not, I don't know. It's only Tuesday morning. You know, I've been watching the news. I know the government is, Congress is all stirred up and debating this. So who knows what's going to happen? I can only give you the answer as it exists today. But I have read about organizations who have said, you know what, our people don't want to come back to work because when they take their basic unemployment and they add on top of it the $600 additional federal money, they're like, why should I come back to work? I'm either making more money sitting at home, especially if they're in a position that's tipped. And right now people aren't going out, so they're not making tips, right? Whether you're a haircut place, a barbershop, beauty salon, or a restaurant, who's going out? Not many people. And so you're not earning tips. And so you might be making more money on unemployment. Is there a way to get people to come back? It's tough, right? And every industry is different. So no doubt the unemployment aspect is different right now than it traditionally would be because of the $600. I heard that the federal government is trying to maybe, instead of just giving you the money, they want to give you some sort of incentive to come back to work. I don't know what that's going to look like. Only time will tell. Let's see. I do see a question that's here in the chat box. Let me just read it out loud here. It says, how would you approach protecting your employees from customers and clients? Enforcing face masks, distancing, etc., for people visiting your place of work? Okay, that's a very good question. I have seen a lot of signage as I have personally gone out to places. I went to the grocery store this weekend and there's signage on the door that says, because of state mandates, everybody must wear a mask, right? Okay, fine. Of course, we also know that those kinds of places will get your order of food for you and let you have curbside pickup. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask or can't wear a mask because of some sort of disability, then I think it's important for us to say, well, listen, we still want you to buy our groceries. We know you need groceries. Will you give us your list? We'll shop for you and bring it curbside, right? So, and again, I joked earlier about if you're a bakery, we want to sell muffins because that's how we stay in business. We're going to do delivery now, right? So what different ways are there for you to do business? And you can use that as a marketing thing. We are concerned about your health. We are concerned about your safety, but we are also concerned about you getting the products and services you need. So we're prepared to deliver them to you differently, which also protects our staff. I've seen some really stupid things lately. Just the other day, I saw a woman who was on a United Airlines flight. Everybody on the airline, on the plane is wearing a mask but her. The flight attendants repeatedly asked her to put on a mask. She repeatedly refused, and they kicked her butt off the plane. I was shouting in happiness and joy. And I got to tell you, everybody's got a phone nowadays and everybody's got a camera, which means it's very easy for everything to go viral. And the last thing you want is for one of your staff or one of your customers to catch something on video and it goes viral for the wrong reason. So think about that, right? PR is good as long as it's not bad PR, right? So personally, I was thrilled to see other people on the plane applauding as this woman was kicked off. And this woman was like, go ahead and applaud, wah, wah, wah. And I have to admit, and I don't mind saying this, and I know this session is being recorded, I hope she missed her flight. I hope she missed whatever she was going for, somebody's graduation, somebody's christening, whatever it was. She's stupid. Let her get this, pay the consequences of her own stupidity. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know you can really use that professionally, but there you go. So again, look for ways to do business differently. And if you have a standard, it's a standard, which means if somebody comes into your workplace and they don't wear a mask, you kick them out. And if they don't want to leave, 911 works very quickly. Just my thoughts on the matter. Who else has got questions or comments for me? Anything at all, I'm at your disposal.
So Lydia's got her hand raised. Can you unmute yourself again, Lydia?
Oh, yes, thank you. That's from the last time. And thank you again. You covered the issue of masks. And I know it's controversial and, oh my goodness, we'll just have to wait and see, because it's not about a shop owner wanting to have somebody not have their rights, but I guess, yeah. Anyway, shops are doing it. Like you said, Adam, the groceries are doing things.
And remember,
they have a right.
This isn't just about the one person who's coming in. It's also about, as the business owner or manager, leader, supervisor, whatever I am, I'm looking out for the safety and welfare of the rest of my staff. I don't want to risk them, because if they get sick, they can't come to work, which inhibits my ability to do whatever it is my business does. I'm also looking out for all the other customers who are currently in my workplace, right? I don't want them getting sick, because then they're not going to come buy my product. And vendors, it's all the same, right? Assuming you're talking about a vendor, right? You could always call the vendor's office and say, listen, your person is coming to my place and they're not wearing a mask. You need to deal with that. Obviously, you don't have that option when you're just talking about a customer who's coming in. But, what if you have a customer who's coming to your place to buy large scale stuff, large volumes, but they're the representative, right? Like, I'm coming to pick up 100 gallons of whatever, but I'm really representing a company. Well, if you don't wear the mask, I can call your boss and say, hey, you sent Billy Bob over here to pick up your 100 gallons. He's not wearing a mask. Listen, I want you to be my customer, but if you're coming in here, Billy Bob or whoever needs to be wearing a mask. And if Billy Bob can't wear it because of some sort of disability reason, you better send somebody else to pick it up. So you can have that frank conversation in that environment, and it's maybe not as easy when it's an individual purchaser, but again, we think creatively, we try to figure it out.
Any other questions? Adam, thank you. Thank you so much for the great presentation. Very informative. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
I'm glad I had the chance. Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope to cross paths with you folks again. And I guess the best thing I can say for now is stay safe, be careful, be flexible, be adaptable, and just hang in there. We will survive, and 2021 will eventually arrive.
Oh, thank you. And
Thank you, Adam.
I just wanted to say I will send out the presentation, and I'm also going to send out an evaluation form. So please, I appreciate it if everybody could fill that out. And you can join us again next